What's good everyone, welcome back to the channel, and on today's video I want to talk to you about the ASICS GEL-NIMBUS 24. Specifically, this is my full review of the ASICS GEL-NIMBUS 24 because I have run over 100 miles in this shoe and it's about time for me to tell you what I think. I've actually run 123.7 miles in this shoe, and that is more than enough time for me to have developed stronger feelings about this shoe, to know what I like, to know what I don't like. And the one thing I don't like, let me just start off with what I don't like, because generally people like to hear about stuff that we don't like, and that's the price. $160 here in the US. And in the UK, well, it's been very difficult for me to find the price of this in the UK. I found it somewhere for 165 pounds, which I think is absolutely insane, and I refuse to believe that what I was looking at is true. So if you are in the UK, just drop a comment with how much the ASICS GEL-NIMBUS 24 is. Now, I did say that I don't like $160, but really the shoe is worth it. The thing that I don't like is that there are other options that are very similar to the GEL-NIMBUS 24 for less money. And let's be honest, we can find something that is very similar, but right along the same type of shoe, the same type of runs that I'm going to use it for, you're probably going to save that money. Unless, of course, you are already a fan of ASICS, you're already a fan of the GEL-NIMBUS, then $160 is money well spent. Let me be clear, I don't regret spending $160 on this shoe. This shoe has been an absolute joy. But the more I think about it and the more I see what else is out there, $160 for a daily trainer just seems a little expensive for now. I know that's the direction we're all going, but let's move on. I've rabbited on about price enough. In a nutshell, $160, bit expensive, still worth it. Especially worth it if you can find a coupon just to get that price down a bit. ASICS claims that the men's US size 9 weighs in at 290 grams or 10.2 ounces. The women's US size 7 weighs in at 8.7 ounces. And what's that? 247 grams. And there are a few other gender specificities that I'll get into in just a second. But of course, unless you wear the sample size of men's 9 or women's 7, your shoe's gonna weigh a bit different from that. My US men's size 13 tips the scale at 358 grams or 12.6 ounces. Now, I'll be the first to admit, it's not skinny mini, but it's also not obscenely heavy. Sitting here holding this shoe, it actually feels lighter than what I know it should feel like. Does that make sense? Maybe I'm just admitting that I can't accurately weigh things in my hands, and that's true. But either way, I've worn some heavy shoes, and this shoe carries its weight well, so I don't want you to be put off just because it's a bit heavier. It is a daily trainer, and generally speaking, daily trainers are heavier than lighter shoes. Heavier shoes are going to be heavier than lighter shoes. What I mean to say is that daily trainers are going to be heavier than like racing shoes, and this beauty carries its weight well. The ASICS GEL-NIMBUS 24 does fit true to size. It fits just like most other shoes. So if that's something you worry about, don't worry. But let's get into some of the gender specificities that I was talking about. You're probably not surprised to hear that I am wearing the men's version of the GEL-NIMBUS 24. And in the men's version, we're sporting a 10mm drop. We have 26 in the heel, 16 in the forefoot, or 10mm drop. Kind of messed up the pattern in which I give that information. Anyway, the women's shoe is just slightly different. The women's version has 28 in the heel, 15 in the forefoot for a 13mm drop. And I'm not going to explain why they do this. I really don't know. I just assume there are different gait patterns that men and women have, and ASICS has poured millions of dollars of R&D into their shoes. I'm just going to say that they know best. They know what they're doing. They've been in the shoe game a long time. Inside the shoe, on the Ortholite X55 sock liner, it says 3D space construction, gender specific comfort. Now, the 3D space construction are like little hexagons inside the midsole, and that just helps disperse the impact forces as you're running. Now, the men's version has this 3D space construction right here in the heel, but the women's version gets 3D space construction in the heel and in the forefoot. Sounds pretty good to me. I actually know nothing about 3D space construction, but if I had the choice to have more of it, I would definitely take it. And I think that's about it as far as gender specific differences. Now, obviously the colorways are going to be different. Drop a comment if, like me, you think that the women's shoes always come in better colors than the men's shoes. The GEL-NIMBUS 24 uses recycled materials in this engineered jacquard mesh upper. The tongue is gusseted, which we always like. I mean, who doesn't like a nice gusset? And the tongue is a knit tongue. And I think the tongue is one of the better features of this shoe. I mean, it's a pretty satisfying tongue. When you put your foot in and that tongue rests over the top of your foot, it feels like coming home after a day out running in sub-zero temperatures. Now, I live in Florida, I don't really know what that feels like, but if I had to imagine what it feels like, this tongue gives me that feeling. It's a pretty good feeling is what I'm getting at. The heel collar is lovely and padded, as we would expect with a daily trainer. There's going to be no rubbing. The comfort is also enhanced by having a very stiff heel counter. Now, this is really stiff. Like there's obviously some piece of plastic in the back here that stops me from bending it, but that just gives even more support when you're out on the run. For a daily trainer, remember guys, a daily trainer is something we are going to be using more than all of our other shoes. This is going to be your bread and butter running shoe. So you want this support. You want the nice padding around the heel collar. A nice stiff heel counter is going to prevent any heel slip, just going to support your foot. You know what I mean? Now, probably the moneymaker of the Gel Nimbus 24 is the midsole. It is now Flight Foam Blast Plus. And it's super responsive, it's super springy, it feels really good. ASICS has also included a small layer of Flight Foam right here above it. You can see just the different color. Flight Foam Blast Plus is white, Flight Foam is blue, and separating the two, we have a layer of gel, and the gel just scoots right in between those layers of midsole foam. There is also a bit of gel right here in the front to assist with impact dampening when you're running. Flip this bad boy around and we see this little black plastic thing right here in the middle. This is the Trustix system. Oh, and I am reminded now that I'm banging on that there is a difference between the men's and the women's Trustix system. It's just placed a little different in the men's version and the women's version. But it does the same thing in both versions of the shoe. It reduces weight while maintaining the structural integrity of the midsole. And whatever we can do to maintain our integrity is pretty vital, wouldn't you agree? Let's get on down to the outsole, and you can see, well actually you can't see because it's not labeled, but you can see because I'm telling you that ASICS is now using ASICS Light Rubber. And if the name didn't give it away, ASICS Light Rubber is actually lighter than standard outsole rubber. Okay, so that's pretty good. We're saving weight. Oh, and I don't think I previously mentioned it, but the Gel Nimbus 24 is actually 20 grams lighter than the Gel Nimbus 23. And anything we can do to save weight is a good thing. Okay, I'm gonna circle back to resilience on this rubber because I just want to point out these two little, just slightly lighter orange pieces on my shoe right here on the heel. And this is actually different. This is not ASICS Light like everything else. This is AHR. AHR stands for ASICS High Abrasion Rubber. And basically they have put AHR rubber right here on the lateral back and very back of the shoe because a lot of people heel strike. Now this is a neutral trainer, and generally speaking, when people run a little slower, they are more likely to heel strike than if they're running fast. Because this is a daily trainer, generally people are going to be using this shoe to run a little slower, at least not at race pace. So because of this, ASICS knows that perhaps more people are going to be heel striking, and they have combated that by putting a little bit of AHR rubber on the back to just extend its life. This rubber right here, this AHR, isn't going to wear down as quickly as the ASICS Light Rubber. And speaking of wearing down, now I'm going to overlay some other shots of this rubber, but let me just get right up close to the camera, and you can see here, right on my forefoot. Now this is probably the place where I land the most. You can see that the rubber is wearing down quite a bit. Now I think there is plenty of life left, but I'm telling you, before I get to 400 miles, I think it's pretty obvious I am going to be reaching this exposed midsole material. Now all this other outsole rubber should protect it somewhat from wearing down too much, but I have to say that I'm a little disappointed how much this is actually wearing down right where my foot hits. So as you know, I have run 123.7 miles in this shoe as of the filming of this video, and looking at it, I don't know, like it's hard to say. I like to think that a daily trainer is going to last at least 400 miles. And in this case, my friends, I don't know, it's difficult to say. But as this is a video giving you my full review of this shoe, I kind of have to say, so I'm gonna put a 300 mile limit on this shoe. And that's only because of the wear of the outsole rubber. And to be honest, I think 300 miles is pretty generous. Do you know, now that I'm looking at it, there seems to be like a concave element to the sole of my shoe. It looks like it is much lower right here in the shoe than it is on the outside. Anyway, that's just some observations. But let's talk about how this shoe rides, because I think that's where the shoe really comes into its own. It is a treat to run in. And I'm gonna put this shoe in the same camp as something like the Brooks Ghost. And if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I'm a pretty big fan of the Brooks Ghost. I think as a daily trainer, that kind of sets the standard. And I enjoy running in the Gel Nimbus 24 as much as I enjoy running in my Brooks Ghost. And I'm really looking forward to comparing the new Ghost when it comes out with this. Now, if you remember back from my first impressions video, you might remember that I said, I think I was feeling something in the forefoot, something that I might explain as being the gel insert. But, and this is a pretty good update for the full review, I haven't been feeling that recently. So a couple days before I'm making this video, I actually ran 15 miles in this shoe, and it was 100% comfortable the entire time. I didn't have any pressure here in my forefoot. So perhaps that is something that has just worked itself out over time. Maybe I've kind of broken them in, even though I know that most shoes don't need to be broken in nowadays, but that's the only way I can explain it. I am probably not going to pick this shoe up to go and do a specific speed workout. probably not going to use this shoe for a tempo run. But when I do strides, the shoe performs surprisingly well. And when I say surprisingly well, I mean like it kind of disappears on my foot. It's not something that I notice. I don't notice the weight. I don't notice anything about the shoe holding me back. Now, when I first got this shoe, I did take it out for some intervals and I didn't notice any difference in my times. So if you could only buy one pair of shoes, I feel comfortable suggesting the Gel-Nimbus 24 because it's going to be soft enough for you to put in the miles every single day, and it's not so heavy that it holds you back when you need to pick up the speed. Now, obviously, I also recommend a bit of a shoe rotation so you can give your shoes a break while you can get another pair. And if you like running fast, you might benefit from something just a little lighter, something with a little less material. Solid shoe for a daily trainer. The price is the only ding on this shoe. All right, guys, for those of you still here, thanks for staying all the way to the end of the video. If you run in ASICS, if you run in the Gel-Nimbus 24, let me know what you think about it. I'd love to hear. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.